everyone. Welcome back. Oh, it's another exciting podcast. Charlotte, are you excited?
I'm excited and yeah, I'm excited. I got
Yeah.
some places I'm trying to decide whether I'm going to go on this conversation, so we'll see where it goes.
Okay. Well, I want to welcome Michelle LaFontaine from PAIL, and that's Pregnancy and Infant Loss. And it's one of those topics that I think when we think about peer support, we often think like mental health, addiction, and there's so many other places that peer support can be. In reality, it can be anywhere in the world where two people share some kind of experience, not necessarily at the same time, but just some common experience. And I think Michelle actually reached out to us. That's how cool we are. And said, hey, can I come and chat on your podcast? Because, I think this is an area that sometimes can be stigmatized. So, Michelle, welcome. And just go for it. Tell us a little bit about PAIL, and wherever you want to go, we're here with you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes, I'm certified fangirl, so reached out and asked if we could have this conversation. I've really enjoyed all the work and all the things that we've been able to do together so far. So this is your latest initiative, and I was like, oh, don't forget, let me come and do this too. So happy to be here, and I think for me, peer support is really personal, and it's always such a pleasure to talk about this aspect where my personal life and my professional life have come together. So I am a person who has experienced pregnancy and infant loss myself. My husband and I had a 7-week miscarriage that resulted in a ruptured ectopic, which then changed my fertility from that point further. We were then only able to seek to achieve a pregnancy using in vitro, which is a very expensive assistive reproductive technology, expensive financially and expensive emotionally and mentally as well. Thrilled when we achieved a pregnancy, and double thrilled when we found out that that pregnancy was a twin pregnancy. Then we thought, okay, this is it. We're not going to have to do any of this ever again. We'll have 2 children, and that's all we'll ever need. And so I learned about stillbirth when stillbirth happened to me. So the twins died 20 years ago this August when I was 5 months pregnant with them. They're a boy and a girl, Joseph and Alora. And I, at the time, felt like I received excellent medical care when I experienced my stillbirth, but went home from hospital with no information about where to go, what to expect, what to do. Thought that somebody was going to have to check me physically because I had delivered twins. I was 5 months pregnant, and really felt like this must be what it feels like when people describe having a nervous breakdown or having a crisis. I wasn't eating, I wasn't sleeping. I went to my family doctor at the time, who prescribed me sleeping pills and sent me home. No information about what to expect. My obstetrician agreed. This was in 2005, so no telemedicine things were happening then, but he agreed to phone me at home because I could not imagine going into his office and seeing other newborns and other pregnant people. So he called me that night at home and said, I know exactly how you feel. When I was doing my residency, I got fired, and I never thought that I was going to be able to complete my residency and become a physician, but I found a hospital in Saskatchewan, completed my residency, and so here I am today. And all that to say that I know right now you think it's never going to get better, but it will. And so,
What?
and that was that.
Uh,
And
uh, uh, that doesn't even,
no,
that's not even logical to me.
no, like how he came to that, I know how you feel.
Oh, wow.
To that was
That's
wild.
massive.
Yes. So really felt invalidated, really felt like, and again, I didn't know anyone this had happened to. And so it wasn't until a friend of a friend who knew someone who had a stillbirth connected me with peer support. And so peer support was the one thing that happened at that time that made me have some kind of hope that I was going to be able to get through this and that I was not alone. So I think when we talk about peer support and we talk about the ways that families and people can connect with each other over that shared experience, that, you know, going to those peer support meetings, they were in person, seeing other people who were sitting upright, who looked like they were experiencing joy in their lives, who some of them had gone on to have more children, some of them had not. It was really, really impactful for me. And they became my peeps. They became still friends to this day, 20 years later, that we were able to really connect, because pregnancy and infant loss doesn't start and stop. It changes who you are in the world for the rest of your life. And so it affects then your next pregnancy if you go on to have other children. It affects how you parent. It affects how you interact with the healthcare system afterwards, because, you know, how am I, knowing what my obstetrician said to me, how am I going to now feel the next time I need to go and see a physician when they clearly did not understand what I was going through and the impact it had?
I look, I'm truthfully, I've teared up because, like, not me, but you have given me a little bit of a different insight to my mum, who had two miscarriages and had a daughter before me who, oh look, I am, who died at a day old, and still to this day, like, I think my sister would be 63 or something. I watch my mum still struggle with that. And in that time, my mum didn't get to see my sister, and they took her away, um, and buried her in an unnamed grave, even though they had done like a baptism. So I'm gonna have a different conversation with my mum. So thank you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be quiet because I'm emotional, and I can't even imagine what you've gone through. So thank you for being on here.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And I mean, I think something that often happens when we talk about stillbirth and infant death is exactly what's happening now, that this happens more than we know, to more people than we know. And yet when you are met with silence, when your mom is met with, this is what's best, don't talk about it, don't think about it, just move on,
Yeah.
that doesn't happen. This is not something that you can just have a burial for and a baptism for and then just move on with it. That her daughter is always missing from her family. And so while I was able to, I often get asked if I did have other children. I do. I have two boys and a stepdaughter, and I love them. I love them deeply, and I cherish each and every one of them, even though they're two teenagers at the time. Um, and that doesn't mean that I don't love and miss the twins, and they're still part of our family, and wish that I could have had the family that I was supposed to have. Um, you know, I think that the other piece of that is that we recognize when we're able to talk about stillbirth and infant death and pregnancy loss, then this happens so much more than we know, that somebody else in that conversation, whether they share it with you or not. We know in Canada, in North America, it's, depending where you look, 1 in 2, 1 in 3, 1 in 4 pregnancies will end in loss. These are staggering numbers. And so oftentimes when we look around the room, we're in a room of 3 people right now, and whoever else is going to be listening, it will happen to you, it will happen to your friend, it will happen to your mom, it will happen to your sister. They just haven't told you. And maybe we need to ask. Maybe we need to bring that conversation forward and let people know that this is a loss deserving of support. And for most families, so what the research tells us about grief and bereavement is that most people rely mostly on social support, not on professional support. And social support is peer support. Social support is your friends and your family who can connect with you. And so that not people who can tell you what you need to do, not people who can give you advice about how to move on or move past. We talk a lot about integrating the loss into your life and how to do that in a way that feels meaningful to you. And so when we started PAIL Network, PAIL Network's been around since the 90s, and it was started by a group of parents who themselves experienced loss and recognized that there was no support available to them, and that in fact what was part of the harm that was caused was harm caused by their healthcare experience. So that has been something that we've always had as part of our work is peer support. So we don't provide any professional counseling or referrals for professional counseling. All the support we offer is peer support. And we also do education for healthcare professionals, support professionals to really help to understand the impact of pregnancy and infant loss and the unique grief, support, and care needs of families who experience pregnancy and infant loss.
You know, and Michelle, that education piece, when you were talking, and I had children. My oldest is 30 and my youngest is 28. And I can still remember giving birth to my youngest. And I was out walking the halls, hooked up to an IV in a hospital gown. And I ran into a girlfriend of mine and I said, "What are you doing here?" And her daughter was delivering a stillbirth on the same floor that all of us were on, having a baby. And so my girlfriend started telling me what was happening, and she was so distraught. And she looked at me, she said, "Why are you here?" And there I am standing in this outfit. And she told me it was the second time they had tried to deliver this baby. And I just thought, could that be any worse for that? My girlfriend's daughter, could it be any worse? You put her on this floor, you've done this twice now. Like, what is she going to be like when this is over?
Yeah.
And she did go on to have more children, but the impact of that was, completely devastating for her. And, I can still see my girlfriend, and it was not a sight that I didn't want that for her or their family at all. And I hope that they've changed that policy where they're doing it somewhere else in the hospital, like not where you're hearing a sound of a baby crying. Like, it's just,
Yeah.
yeah.
So the bad news is no, that hasn't
no.
changed.
No.
And I think if I can offer a bit of context for why, so there are some families who will say, "Don't put me somewhere else. I'm having a baby and I deserve to be cared for by the same people with the same expertise who are going to care for my baby, whether he or she is delivered alive or still." And there are some families that will say that was horrific, that I could hear other babies crying. And I think the reality of that is that the process that your body still has to go through, you need to be cared for by people who know how to deliver babies. And in hospitals, that's in one place, that they don't have multiple options for that. But what we do talk about in our education is how to make the space a little bit less triggering for families. Are there other things that you can do? When I experienced my stillbirth, I first went to my local hospital because I didn't know what was happening. And they did put me in a room that was as far down the hall as they could. They turned the TV on in my room just to have noise that might drown out things that were happening outside of my room. And she also put like a stand-up curtain between me and the door so that anybody who was kind of walking by, I didn't need to see people who are, pregnant and with, like you, Charlotte, in that hallway with their IV poles just waiting to get their labor going. So it is a really challenging, paradoxical time to think about where that care can be best delivered, and how to make that as sensitive as possible. And I think for a lot of families who experience pregnancy loss and infant death, being cared for in the place that families will often talk about after their baby has been born, how important it was for them that the nurses and the professionals around them cared for them like they were a new baby, that we still spent time with the baby, we were holding, bathing, dressing, all the things, that's the only chance that you get to parent your child. And so all of those times are so important. And I can't imagine anywhere else in the hospital who would be as skilled or prepared to do that work than on the birthing unit, as difficult as that will be. I will say that we have gone to some places in Ontario. We're a provincial organization. And some hospitals, whenever a baby is born, over the entire speaker system of the hospital, a little bit of a lullaby is played. And we have talked with hospitals around what that might be like for other people. That, that I think it's well intentioned. It sounds cute to do that, and let's celebrate every time a baby is born. But for families who are sitting in your emergency department, who are experiencing some of the worst times of their lives, for families who are experiencing stillbirth in your hospital, that's a very difficult reminder of what should be happening for them but isn't.
So Michelle, when do people find you? Is it always after, or is it during, or like how would that show up for you?
So usually families find out about us when they have experienced pregnancy loss or infant death. We are able to accept self-referrals, but we also do a lot of education with professionals to be able to give families that information at the time of their loss, so that they don't leave hospital or clinic without information about where to go for support. And in fact, professionals can refer families directly to us so that then we can then reach out to families at a time that they've indicated would make the most sense for them to hear from us. We really want for the awareness of pregnancy and infant loss to be such that you, even if you haven't experienced pregnancy and infant loss yourself, you are aware that support exists for people who have. Yeah. That, in the same way that we're starting to see mental health organizations become kind of a more familiar place in the community, a familiar name in the community. We would really like to see that happen for Pregnancy and Infant Loss Network as well. That any family who is in childbearing age, any family who may have had children, we have families, Robyn, when you talk about your mom, we have families who reach out to us who are in their 70s and 80s because they have never had the chance to talk about their baby who died.
So thinking about that while you were talking, like you were saying that PAIL's been around since the 90s, but are there equivalent networks? Because our listeners are in the US, they're in different provinces in Canada, they're in Australia, New Zealand, hopefully some people in Europe. Are there equivalent services that you know of?
I would say most places, yes. So what's unique to PAIL Network in Ontario is that we are fully funded by our Ministry of Health in our province. And we are the only province in the country that receives full funding from the Ministry of Health. And that's because legislation was passed. So we had legislation passed that gave a mandate to the Ministry of Health in Ontario. And we at PAIL Network fulfill that mandate on behalf of the ministry. We certainly are aware of other provinces in the country that have support services available, other places in Ontario that also offer this kind of support. What's unique to PAIL, again, is that funding and that we do the education as well. So the education, I think, is really what has been setting us apart. We often look to our colleagues in the UK and in Australia. They are far and away doing much better than we are doing here in North America.
Yeah, Australia, but
Yes,
sad that
Australia.
that's the case too.
Yes, yes. So really a lot more attention being paid by the government in terms of bereavement leave for families who experience pregnancy
Oh,
and infant loss.
yeah.
So that has been phenomenal to see. Australia has an incredible center for excellence, and they do a lot of research coming out of Australia. We have an organization that is very similar to us in the UK called SANS. And we are fortunate enough to visit them when we first received our funding. And it was incredible how similar we are, but they've been doing it 20 years longer than we've been doing it. So really kind of looking to other countries, Ireland, Australia, the UK. Their health system, of course, is set up differently than we are here in Canada. However, looking to what they've been able to accomplish is also showing us a path forward, that we are continuing to do that work, continuing to make sure that we can embed ourselves in research, and that peer support is international, that the impact of sharing that experience with someone who really gets it, who really, as they're nodding, I remember sitting in a peer support group and listening to other people talk and thinking like, that's exactly what's happening. Like that, I've actually felt so much comfort in hearing someone else almost narrate what was happening in my brain and help that make sense to me. And so for grief in particular, looking for that kind of support, I think has been really, really powerful to look at the peer support models that exist in different parts of the world.
I am just so happy what you all are doing at PAIL. I hope that it goes right across Canada into the US, not just pockets of it. I think the ability to say, hey, listen, I'm coming forward and sharing a story gives others permission to maybe share a little bit too, especially in those, years ago, it was taboo to talk about it. It really was. And so a lot of those are buried deep within people. And so hearing that there's some in their 70s that are coming forward and sharing that story is wonderful to hear. I hope that the younger generation are more comfortable sharing that, and us as their parents aren't squashing that conversation too. Because I know it's still happening where it's just, it happens to women all the time. You'll be fine. And I wish that narrative would stop and allow people to choose how they want to show up and grieve, and how we can better support them.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that we have also learned through this work is the difference between the intentionality of those messages that are being said to families and people, and how that's being received. And so, hearing things like, at least you can get pregnant, be grateful for the children that you have at home. You're so, families who have talked with us about getting pregnant in their younger years, well, you're so young, just go out and have fun, and this will all, just really invalidating. And so we'll always tell people anything that starts with at least is probably not the right thing to say, and I think anyone who has experienced any kind of support or any kind of difficult, challenging, hard situations in their life, and anytime that someone says at least something, not helpful. In particular, for families, I think the unique aspect, again, of families who experience pregnancy and infant loss is really that there does seem to be this need for people to know that you have gone on to have more children, and that will make it all okay. And what people who experience loss want you to know is that the baby who died is irreplaceable. And to be able to use the baby's name, if you were able to give your baby a name, if you chose one, to let them have that space to talk about it. I agree with you, Charlotte. I'm hopeful that the generation that is coming up now Social media is not always a bad thing. You know, if you're able to find other people, if you're able to find groups that are supportive through social media, that's often where young people will start looking. Reddit. I've heard lots of young people going on Reddit to find other people who have shared those experiences with them. And yet we also know that there's so many misconceptions that continue to be so pervasive. So these uh, families and people, I catch myself saying families a lot, and it's because I'm trying not to say patients. So I should stop saying families and start saying people who experience pregnancy and infant loss will often feel that they are not represented. They don't see themselves reflected in society. It's changing a little bit with celebrities coming forward with their own experiences, but with social media and with the ability to learn that you're pregnant so early. We often will see social media announcements with pictures of pregnancy tests, and but all of that is to also say there's no 12-week mark that then it's okay now to go and tell everyone. We know that most miscarriages and pregnancy losses do happen in the first 12 weeks, but attachment is where the grief comes from. It's not about how many weeks gestation you are, how old the baby was when they died. It's about the attachment that you have already formed to that baby. And for many people, that starts before you receive a positive pregnancy test. So I am a person who grew up wanting to have children, wanting to be a mother, and I always envisioned that for me in my life. And so when we experienced our miscarriage, all of those hopes and dreams died when that baby died. And so you project yourself into the future and you start to think about, okay, when I'm this far along, it will be my mom's birthday, and so maybe I'll tell her then. Or by this time next year, the baby will be this old. You really kind of start to envision yourself and you start to change who you are. Your identity changes from a single person to a parent. And so all of those things, when the baby dies, all of those things now have to be reconciled. So the wedding that you were going to next summer that you thought you were going to need a different dress for, well, that doesn't happen anymore. And families will often talk about how they didn't even tell anybody yet that they were pregnant. And so not telling anybody now means that they don't know what to say. So do I go and tell people now that I was pregnant, but now I'm not pregnant anymore? And then I have to deal with how they feel about those two things. So it's really complicated for people who experience pregnancy and infant loss. And the messages that we continue to receive about just move on, you can have more kids. This happens all the time, really common. Not to me. Not to me, it doesn't happen all the time. And it's not common to me that this happened. And so really looking to validate that. And we have heard from people that once they are connected with support or even just given a brochure about support, that in and of itself can be validating enough to tell someone this is a loss deserving of support, that here's a brochure, you are not alone. And that people have said to us in the past that I got the brochure and I thought, well, there must be so many other people. There's a whole organization who does this work. So there must be other people who've also experienced this.
It's you made me think when you were talking about people who don't say they're pregnant and have that miscarriage, and then it's like, oh, do we tell people, not tell people? I just I I didn't personally have that experience, but my one of my closest friends who also lost a baby through stillbirth, their daughter, like reached out and went, I'm pregnant, and I went, how cool. And then my friend went, I'm amazed she told you, because she's had a miscarriage in the last year and wasn't going to, and hadn't told people then, and wasn't going to tell people about this baby until she felt like a little more hope with what was happening with her. And it's just it's different, I know, but I have this conversation all the time about, can we talk more about anything, like about losing people to suicide or someone feeling suicidal or this? Because if we could just have conversations about the things that are actually impacting all of us, wouldn't the world be, I think the world would just be a different place if it was okay to talk about it and people felt like they were going to be supported, not dismissed. And like, this has just been so cool for me. And that sounds awful in my head when I say it out loud, but being able to hear from you and hear the work you do, and then think about the people in my life that have been impacted, that I haven't even thought about some of the things that you've talked about. So, like, thank you for being willing to share you. That's, I'm going to throw it to Charlotte, because for once I'm kind of like lost for words. And one more thing, my sister's name is Tina.
Tina. Thank you. Thank you for sharing, Tina.
Oh, Michelle, it's been really, I don't want to say enjoyable, but important message, this conversation that we've had. And I really appreciate you reaching out and coming forward and talking so openly, because I know people are going to resonate with this conversation, like Robyn, rethinking some relationships. And also for some of us to come forward and start talking about it, and those moments in life that maybe were shoved under the carpet and buried deep and still have an impact on us. I'm going to give you the floor to end us out. What would you like people to go away with, your final message today, Michelle?
Thank you for letting me be a part of this podcast. It's been incredible to have this opportunity to talk about it. This is a loss that in Canada affects over 3,000 families every year. And we know that number does not include miscarriage. So when you think about the number of people that you have in your life, when you think about the impacts and how far reaching they are, it's never too late to have those conversations. It's never too late to wonder with someone how you might best support them, to think about special times of the year, rituals that you have in your family and in your culture, and how you might want to include your sister, your daughter, your son, how you might want to include them in things going forward, and to know that this is something that affects families over the long term. I said it earlier, it changes who you are, and it's okay. It's okay to talk about those things, because the more we talk about it, the more that these conversations will be had, and that's what gets rid of the stigma. So more talking, be brave, talk with people who you trust, and we'll be able to move through this.
Well, thanks for joining us, Michelle. Robyn, I know you close us out, so I'm turning it back to you now.
Oh, good on ya. I'm still, yeah. Look, it's amazing being able to talk about the differences in peer support, and yet there's similarities, right? And I wish peer support was everywhere for everything, and we could just be in conversation all the time. So, Michelle, heartfelt thanks. Charlotte did give me a little message before we came on, so it feels a bit weird saying this, but like, please, those people out there, if if you can give us a rating and a review on whatever platform you're on, or subscribe, because we want to keep bringing topics like this that are heartfelt. And also reach out to us if there's a topic you want us to chat about, like tell us, because like we're here just to get the word out about peer support. And like actually for me, I think it's about human to human connection without judgment, without bias, without trying to fix, solve, and save, but so that people are seen, heard, and validated for their experiences. So thank you, and we will see you next time.